Hi guys, welcome to the Data Game with Troy Francis. Another coaching video. Today we're going to be talking about the bad boy versus the nice guy and the 80-20 rule in relation to that. So look, people talk about this bad boy thing the whole time. Women love bad boys, blah, blah, blah. Nice guys finish last. We've heard all this stuff a billion times. How do you actually incorporate it into your dating life in such a way that it's effective, but you don't become a complete psychopath in the process? In my view, you are looking at incorporating the 80-20 rule. Okay, that is to say 20% bad boy versus 80% not nice guy, but just decent guy. Okay. Now, the reasoning is this. If you are too much weighted towards the bad guy, then in the end, you're going to get pushback from a lot of women, and you're also going to get pushback from the rest of society as well. And I mean, one thing I can tell you is that females' friendship groups are not sympathetic, to put it mildly, to guys who are super toxic, super whatever. Okay. Do women like toxicity in men? Yes, they do. Of course, it's very well documented. And there are outlier cases where women fall in love with serial killers and, all that kind of thing. But let's put that to one side. Let's think more about what's happening more generally in the middle. What women like, what women respond to is, or are guys who have that element of steel about them, okay, but who are fundamentally decent. In other words, they feel safe around them. Okay. What she doesn't want is to be with somebody who is overly controlling, who is overly dominant, who is pushing the envelope too far in that direction. Because the problem is, okay, remember, hypergamy is a many splendid thing. All right. Hypergamy, the female desire to get the best possible option that she can get in the dating marketplace. Now, it might be that you have a lot of the attributes, in dating that she's looking for, right? You might be in a good position in your career. You might be decent looking. You might be in good shape. You might be well dressed, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't mean that you can get away with being a complete dick the entire time, because what's going to happen is she may tolerate that for a while. She may even quite like it for a while, but then she's going to look around and think, well, hang on a minute. There's other dudes around here who've got the same or maybe more money. They've got a better career. They've got a better car, and they're not going to be as toxic as that. So why the fuck would I put up with you? Okay. It needs to be a balance. All right. Having said that, what you don't want to do either is be the complete pushover who's just going to go along with everything that she says. What you want is basically when you guys are together, you want to have a pleasant time. Okay. And you want that for you as much as for her. You don't want it to be this like super kind of controlled environment where everyone's kind of walking on eggshells, figuring out what to say and what they can't say and what they can say. You want it to be cool for her and cool for you, but you also want her to know that at the end of the day, you are the man in the relationship. You are the guy who makes the decisions. You are leading this thing. Okay. And even more important than that, you want her to understand that there are certain boundaries that cannot be crossed. Okay. There are certain boundaries, there are certain non negotiables, there are certain red lines where if they are crossed, then you are going to remove yourself from the situation. Okay. And it's as simple as that. Now, people might say that sounds toxic. People might say that sounds controlling, but it isn't, because I believe that every human being has the right to decide how they want to conduct their life and how they want the people around them to act. And if there are things she's going to do that are going to upset your serenity, that are going to psychologically affect you adversely, and you've communicated those to her and you've agreed on those, and then she goes back on that, then you have to remove yourself from that situation. Okay. That's called having a backbone. That's called having boundaries. All right. That is called, well, you might say it's being called being a bad boy, but it's not really. It's about having standards for yourself, having non-negotiables, and being prepared to act on the basis of those being transgressed. All right. That in itself is very attractive. It doesn't need to be a huge proportion. 20% is fine. It's there. It's present. She can feel it. She can see it. The rest of the time, you're having a pretty good time. All right. Because here's the thing, right? I mean, we talk about relationships all the time on red pill shows and panel shows and all this kind of stuff, and it becomes this very combative thing, and people are sort of analyzing it and bringing data studies into it and all this kind of stuff. But in the end, this stuff's meant to be fun, man. Like why have a girlfriend? Why be with somebody if it's not going to be fun? If you guys are not going to enjoy it, right? Enjoy each other's company. This sex, obviously, but just spending time together, right? Um, I know there are some guys out there who I was talking to a dude yesterday. He's like, "Yeah, man, I don't even like spending time with women. I just want to, get intimate with them and that's it." And okay, fine. If that's you, that's your opinion. I think that that is an outlier opinion. I think most men, they enjoy the company of women. They enjoy the company of a good woman. Okay. And when you find a good woman and you want to be in a relationship with her, whether it's casual or more serious or whatever, right? You want that to be somewhat harmonious. Okay. It doesn't seem to me to be rocket science, right? You want that to be kind of fun. Otherwise, what's the fucking point? You might as well just be single, okay? So that's why I'm saying 80-20, because if you are being super hardcore, and this is, I think, a problem because men will watch things that they see online. They'll see, we all know the big name influencers um, who promote a version of masculinity, which seems to be very um, dominant, and it seems to be very hardcore and hard line. And men who, quite frankly, probably don't really have the resources or the physique or the chutzpah to back it up, will attempt to enforce that same sort of masculinity on the women that they're with, and it tends to backfire for reasons that I've said. She's going to look at you and go, "Well, you're all right, but this isn't actually much fun. I'd probably just rather go out with him, who's going to give me less hassle." Okay, but they're misinterpreting the bigger picture, because the bigger picture is that a lot of these large influencers who are, they're talking tough when it comes to masculinity and to male female relationships and how those should go. And I'm not saying they're being disingenuous, but those guys are also often, absolute gentlemen as well. Like when you see them in real life and they're interacting with women, they're very respectful. Okay. They're very protective of the women around them. They will make sure, for example, she gets home okay. He'll get her an Uber. He'll get her one of, like one of these executive cars, take her home, make sure she gets home okay. All of that. If anything, the level of care, let's say, that these guys give to women around them, even women that they may not be dating or sleeping with or even interested in, the level of care that they will give to those women is very, very high. Okay. So far from this sort of like myth about toxic masculinity, actually, those guys could be very, you might even call it chivalrous in a weird way, right? They really look after the women around them because they would see that as being part of the masculine role. Okay. There are women around. Okay. You're the guy. You're going to look after them. Okay. To a greater or lesser extent, depending on your relationship. Okay. That's part of the role of being a man. That's part of the masculine role. Okay. Now, I'm not saying, go out on a limb and, just do ridiculous acts of charity for some random person in the street. But at the same time, if you're dealing with a woman, and particularly on a relationship with her, right, that side of you is important. Now, once again, the problem with this space is because everyone is a little bit sort of dumb, quite frankly, we tend to be very polarized with this. We think, okay, so you're either going to be the provider chump who's simping and who's all up in her business the whole time and who's paying for everything and it's all very transactional, or you're going to be Chad and you're a complete jerk and you don't give a damn and she just loves you anyway. Okay. Once again, the sweet spot actually is somewhere in the middle, right? She needs to know that you have the capacity for here, the Chadness, the I can walk away, I have options, I'm not an easy pushover. She needs to know that the boundaries are there. But equally, she also wants to enjoy her time with you. Okay? Because otherwise it's this very joyless kind of draconian sort of thing, which is just not really any good for her. And it's probably no good for you either, because she's going to be resentful, she's going to be in a bad mood, she's probably going to take it out on you, and the whole thing's just going to be crap. So just sprinkle in, and this is what we talk about with our course, The Edge, where we teach some of this stuff. You know, we talk about the dark triad, narcissism, Machiavellianism, psychopathy, and how those things in combination tend to be attractive to women, and why that is, and how you can, acquire some of that stuff without going completely nuts. Um, Email me, Troy at realtroyfrancis.com, by the way, if you're interested in that. But that's something I do with James Tusk. But the reason that, we talk about that is, or what we say there is, yes, that stuff holds water and it's important, but equally, you can't let it take over your entire life. Okay. You can't let it take over your entire personality, because then you become a caricature. All right. And the very worst thing about becoming a caricature is that women can also sense on some level that you've become a caricature. And this is why suddenly you're getting those lists where women are writing, how to avoid a red pill man, or they're saying, oh, he's watched too many tape videos or something like that. Suddenly, far from it looking cool, you start to look like you're like a tape wannabe or something like that. And that then isn't cool, because she intuits on some level that you're just trying to copy someone else. Okay. So yes, you can take lessons from some of the content that you see online. You can understand these dynamics better, but the way that you actually put it into practice, you have to live in the real world as well, okay? And you have to recognize that being just this complete sort of manipulative hard ass the whole time is not going to play well. It's not going to play well for her. It's not going to play well for you. And the whole thing is probably going to blow up at some point. So, as I say, 80/20. And again, when we talk about bad boy, we're not even really, I mean, yes, there are plenty of examples of women who fall in love with criminals, and they love guys on death row, and all of that kind of stuff. And Charles Manson, fine, whatever. But those things are outliers. Let's put that to one side. What we're actually talking about here is not so much the bad boy thing. It's the manifestation. Fundamentally, the bad boy does what he wants to do. Okay. So if the bad boy wants to stay out all night on a Thursday and she doesn't want him to, then he's going to do that anyway. Okay. Now, she might not be happy about that, but he is living life on his own terms. All right. He is living life on his own reality, and he's not kowtowing to her. And she might be really angry. She might not talk to him for a couple of days, whatever. But there is something respectful in that, in a sense, because again, he's showing a degree of strength. Okay, he's showing a degree of independence from her, and that is going to be attractive. What's not going to be attractive to her is him appearing to try to emulate the behavior of some online character, for kudos. When he probably doesn't actually measure up to that character in real life anyway. So just, with all of this stuff, as I always say, you've got to take it with a pinch of salt. You've got to think about, okay, so there's the stuff that I'm hearing online. There's this content, okay? And then there's the mainstream over here, which is maybe saying something different. And then you've got the middle. Now, the middle is actually really fascinating, because on the one hand, you've got podcasts and people doing all these shows and stuff, and then you've got the, let's say, the mainstream. You've got the media over here talking about toxic masculinity and how terrible it all is and everything else. Actually, what in reality, what I've observed, in the middle, you tend to get women who are sort of somewhat on the fence about it. I mean, yes, they don't like the worst excesses of toxic masculinity, of course, but many of them quite like elements of it, you know. And there was a really interesting quote on something I saw. It was the Piers Morgan interview with Chris Williamson, actually, and Piers Morgan made the point that as men are becoming more feminized in society, the kind of men that women are now being told that they should like, they should be attracted to. Basically, let's say soy boys, guys who are very more feminized, a bit more weak, a bit more pushover or whatever. Do women actually find those guys attractive? Well, no, not really, no, because our biology hasn't caught up. It might be now that in 2024 you can be a spaghetti armed kind of weakling and you can make a fortune through tech, fine. You can ascend to the highest echelons of society without having to be a warrior, without having to have a body like Achilles or whatever. But women's biology hasn't caught up to that yet. So she's not going to look at that guy and think, wow, he's fucking hot because he's got a degree in computer science, right? She still wants the guy who is exhibiting those signs of that dominance and that physicality and everything else. So, so the point is, you've got to bear in mind there's two extremes. There's what people are saying online. Then there's what the mainstream is saying, which is probably too far the other way. And then there's the bit in the middle, which is a bit of a compromise between the two. Now, of course, you are also going to meet women who are vehemently opposed to any form of what they would regard as toxic masculinity. Okay, that's fine. But I think the majority of regular girls that I've met are, they do like a guy who leads still. They do like a guy to approach them. They do like a guy to make the first move. They do like a guy to sort of make decisions and be the man in the relationship. Okay. So if you can inhabit that role and show that you have boundaries, okay, and this is from the first approach, by the way. This isn't, maybe you first approach her, first date, etc., etc. You're exhibiting this stuff, not in an arsehole-ish way, but just, she could tell there's a bit of fire behind the eyes. You're not messing around, but you're also a decent guy. You're going to look after her. You're going to make sure she gets home okay, whatever, blah blah blah. That's the sweet spot that you want to hit. Okay, it's that sweet spot between the steel and the empathy. Okay, a lot of guys, I think, find it difficult to find that balance. They go veer one way or the other. Most guys veer too much towards the nice guy. A few guys veer too much towards the arsehole, but that is minority, okay? What we need to be doing is getting somewhere more in the middle. 80-20, I think, works pretty well. Don't know what you think. Let me know in the comments below. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hit subscribe for more. Hit the notifications bell, and I'll see you guys again very soon. Bye-bye.